Good day, guys and gals, and to our non binary pals out there. Today, what we're gonna do is something a little bit different from what I usually do in my channel. Today, we're going to review a miniature skirmish game, tabletop miniature skirmish game called Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught. So, I've been lucky enough to have been able to receive a preview kit which comes with the preview rules and some miniatures and basically enough to play a demo game, a preview game. So, what's inside the preview kit allows you to play a very limited game of Onslaught. It's certainly not a full game, so it's more suited for a demo experience rather than a full game experience. But even from that, you could really get a glimpse of how interesting and how good this game is. And what's really good about this game right now, from what I've seen, having played several games with it with some friends and some people I've demoed to, is that the game captures the Dungeons and Dragons combat really well from the RPG, and it cleans up what is usually a big problem with some skirmish games, which is some of the current skirmish games that are popular right now have a ton of tokens. It requires a lot of tokens to play. So wound tokens, power tokens, uh, activation tokens, and whatever other tokens. And the biggest innovation in my, at least for me, is probably the stat card, which is basically the character card. As you'll see, there are dials on it, and this makes it very WizKids, if you know what I mean, because of the history of WizKids with Mage Knight and HeroClix, which have the combat dial system, which has the stats of the characters and the abilities on the base where it's moved with the dial when it takes damage and stuff like that. So this card shows the basic attacks, the name. Here we have Grubbleshanks, and on this side we have his basic attacks. This is his role, so that symbol is a role. That means you can take one guy with that symbol in your party. And then this is your basic stat line, which is your movement, your armor class, and your hit points. And as you take hit points, you'll see the number of hit points you have left goes down as you take damage. And then when you hit that injured stage, your stats change, which means you're injured, so you may become more defensive, your movement may change, you may move slower and stuff like that until you hit this, at which point your character is knocked, is basically KO'd out of the game. Also, if you notice this side, you have an experience point tracker, and it goes up with each act that you make that allows you to gain experience points until you reach this symbol, at which point you level up, and then you get a special ability that you choose from. At least in the preview kit, you get to choose from 2 abilities, and then you gain that ability once you level up. Also, if you notice here at the bottom, you have 2 special abilities which can be activated either usually as a standard or a bonus action. And it starts off with the check, and then as you use it, and then in succeeding turns, the dial moves like a countdown timer until you are ready to use it again. And here we have a reaction ability which doesn't require you to use one of your activations or basic actions, but requires a certain event to happen in the game. In which case, for Grabbleshanks, that means it's a character that's moving away from him, so he'll get an attack of opportunity. So this is a reaction ability, and it also has a uh, countdown timer, so you'll know when you can use that ability again. So I think this character card makes the game a little bit cleaner as far as uh, you know uh, tracking wounds, tracking abilities are concerned. So I think that's a great innovation. I've seen some games like what do you call? I forgot the name. It was made by Asmodee, uh, but they also had stat cards with dials. But I think this is a great implementation of that. Another great uh, innovation, or at least I've never seen this done with other skirmish games, is uh, the initiative system. Now, what makes this initiative system unique, at least in my opinion, is that while the initiative, the first character to move, is passed from one player to the next. So after I get the one card, after my after this round of activations, and then when we go to the next round, I pass this to the next player. But the rest of the initiative cards are distributed randomly between the two players. So it adds another level of strategy or tactic required when you're playing the game, as when these cards are given to you randomly, when you're already playing the full game, it's going to be 10 cards. So for 5 characters on each side. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna assign these cards face down to your characters, and that determines which characters to go first. So that adds an element of strategy when you're deciding who you want to go first, knowing your opponent has the numbers you don't have. And it also uh, asks you to think which of your characters you need to go first and who needs to go last. So, and it also simulates that very important aspect of D&D RPG gaming, Dungeons and Dragons RPG gaming, which is rolling for initiative. So I think this was a very good implementation of the initiative system. However, what happens is there could be times where you could get very lucky and get continuous activations. For, let's say, you get 1, 2, 3, all assigned to one player, and that might allow you to cascade your attacks on your opponent, and then immediately take someone out on the other side. But as these things go, it should all even out through the course of a game. What's also interesting is it's not just a PvP game, it's a PvPvE game, because there's monsters while you're playing. So, and the monsters are basically controlled by an AI, which is determined with the scenario you're playing. So a monster may behave differently depending on what scenario you're playing. For example, in the scenario that comes with the preview kit, the goblins are just basically going forward to the nearest player character and then just dealing damage to them. It's fairly simple. But in I can easily imagine that in other scenarios, these monsters could be programmed to like protect an area or go after the person carrying a certain item or go after the most wounded character. So it really leaves a lot of design space for scenario builders on how the monsters will behave. So that's a plus in my opinion because that leaves a lot of open design space for WizKids to make future scenarios. And even right now, I'm thinking uh, the system allows actually players to create their own scenarios. And if both players agree, then you can create your own scenarios and play them with using the Onslaught system. So the game's going to come out supposedly, barring unforeseen logistics issues, in Q1 of 2023, and the starter is going to come out with 21 miniatures, 12 playable characters which you choose from, and monsters, including a dragon and some other big creatures, and it's going to retail for $140. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pictures of what's inside this starter set right now. The starter set also comes with all the tokens and cards that you're going to need to play the game, and also comes with 7 scenarios. And there's already a whole year of releases and scheduled for this game starting 2023, and also organized play has been scheduled. So first off, once it's released, there's going to be a launch kit that comes with the release. And then there's going to be store OP kits, and from what I understand, there's going to be 3 store OP kits being released throughout 2023. I'm assuming it's going to be second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter for those store OP kits. Plus, there's going to be a year-long storyline kit, which is, I'm assuming, going to be set in the Forgotten Realms, because the starter set is going to be set in the Forgotten Realms. So it's going to be a storyline kit. So that's separate from the store OP kit, which is more focused on competitive play. Storyline kit would probably be more focused on narrative play. And then there's going to be like regional championships and world championships. And I'm assuming the store OP kits are what are stepping stones for the regionals and for the world championships. So this isn't something new to WizKids. WizKids has been doing organized play for ever since they started in the late 90s. So I'm pretty sure the organized play is going to be well supported. So that's a good sign for this game. Another good thing about the WizKids using the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property for this game is this opens up the possibility of us seeing characters from like Drizzt and Baldur's Gate, from the Forgotten Realms universe, and probably even from the Dragonlance universe, and other beloved Dungeons and Dragons characters. So there's certainly a possibility for us to see stats for those characters in this game. And the game's also going to be supported with DLC. And what that means is they're going to give out free downloadable content for I'm assuming monsters that you can use for scenarios and games. And because of that, I'm also assuming that this leaves players room to create their own scenarios to play with the Onslaught system. If you're gonna be able to download stats for monsters for this game, then you might as well be able to make use your own scenarios, make your own scenarios, and use those monsters for however you want, to set it up. Having also the Dungeons and Dragons IP opens this up to the possibility of us seeing Magic the Gathering characters in Onslaught, because Dungeons and Dragons right now has incorporated into the Dungeons and Dragons system the Magic the Gathering universe. We've seen source books for for Magic the Gathering planes for Dungeons and Dragons. So this opens it up to a whole universe, multiverse of possibilities as to what characters we can see in this system. And that's really very exciting if we can see characters from Magic the Gathering as well in the Onslaught system. So that's going to be very exciting. And what I really found interesting after playing a few games with the preview kit is the design space for this game is so open. The rules are very simple and easy to understand for somebody with a background in Dungeons and Dragons or from a miniature skirmish game background. And I think it's still going to be easy to teach to someone with no D&D or miniature skirmish game background, mainly because of the mainly because of this card. So it makes tracking things easier, and it frees up a lot of what do you call that, tracking, which frees up your mind to think about other things. And design space is so open. Aside from the IP being so open, the amount of scenarios you can create is literally infinite, with the amount of monsters in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, the amount of items, which, by the way, when you find items and in chess during play, your characters can use them, pick them up and use them. And you can actually, when you defeat another character, you can loot them and then get the items from them. So it's just a very, very open, simple but very open game system that allows for a lot of design space for creators, for the designers, and even for players. So that's really what's got me excited about this game. There's a lot of potential in this game, and I hope to see a lot of those potentials happen. And that's basically my review for Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught Skirmish Game. I hope you liked it, and I'm looking forward to January 2023, first quarter of 2023, to get my hands on a full game and then get to play and experience the game how it's meant to be. And but even with this preview copy, where you can only play with 2 characters per side, it was already a joy to play. Of course, there's some things that feels a little bit in Tagalog we call it bitin, which means you find it lacking because of the limited play experience in the preview kit, which makes you imagine how the game would play as a full game. So I leave you with that. Once again, thank you for listening. Hope you like this content. Thank you. Good day.
In the forgotten dungeons of the Forgotten Realms, an elusive treasure awaits you. But standing between you and your prize, the monsters who lie beneath. Gather your party, press forward, and beware your rivals. The Harpers.
The Zentarum stand in our way!
Hold fast!
The Zentarum.
Only the Harpers oppose us.
Let no creature pass.
And those who guard the keep. A brand new tactical skirmish miniatures game in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Are you brave enough to face the Onslaught? Pre-order at your game store or online.